I think it began in 2005 when two parents here at Emerson, Karen Broderick and Derek Collis, wanted to do some shade protection for the kindergarten yard. And they looked into it and realized that to build something would have been too expensive, so they started thinking of other options. And they came across this organization called Tree People. And Tree People is a LA-based organization, and they help schools plant trees, and they also plant trees along streets, in parks, and in the mountains. Tree People, they don't actually do all of the work for you, but they give you the organizational tools to create your planting day, and they also give you training on the ongoing tree care. We first looked at where we were going to get the trees. We knew that we were going to buy over half of them, but some of them we were going to get from the shade tree program from the Burbank Water and Power. So those trees had to be located in certain places where they would actually provide a service where they would shade the building or shade students who were outside playing. The tree planting for the 43 trees in 2006 took 2 days, and it was planned that one day would be a school day and one day would be a community volunteer day. They were back-to-back days. It was Friday and Saturday. And during the school day, each class had their own specific tree that they had to name and they had to plant. And so in the planting that Tree People help, they have a certain way they help you plant the tree that teaches you about the root system, the trunk, the leaves, and all the different parts of the tree and how to plant it correctly. Each classroom who was assigned a tree, they continue to water it. So at first we were watering twice a week, and now that it's been 2 years, we water about every 6 weeks. So the teachers in the classrooms are still responsible for watering those trees. And then we have a parent-based organization that waters the other half of the trees, because we have about 25 trees covered by classrooms, and we have the rest of them, about 15 to 18 trees covered by parents. The district is involved because they'll do some tree care for us, and they were very cooperative and very helpful when it was time to cut out parts of the playground where we wanted to plant trees. And there was also all the different buried power lines and gas lines that we had to stay away from. So the city was helpful in that manner. So these 4 trees here, the green ones, are pink trumpet trees. And in about 4 years, they'll be tall enough where they will crest the roof of this building and start to shade the roof and keep the cooling costs low in here. And these are also deciduous trees, where in the winter the leaves will fall off and the sun will actually shine through the branches and hit the roof and warm the building. Yet in the summer the leaves will keep the sun from hitting the building, which will help cooling costs. Many of our trees here are planted on the south or west facing side, so they're most protective of the sun. And then here at the end we have a purple plum tree, which won't be as tall as those, but it'll also help shade the building. One of our problems was that we did a lot of research on the trees, but some of the trees that we planted were so slow growing that they weren't able to get taller than the kids before the kids could mess with them. Some of our most successful trees are the ones that kind of just shot up and got out of the kids' way, and so the kids started to not mess with them so much. And they just became another tree on the playground, whereas the smaller ones were so tempting for them to grab onto and twist and bend and mess with. This is one of the trees that we chose that we knew would be fast growing, and this is actually our biggest tree that we planted. So in 2 years, this went from pretty much a stick that was about this tall to this size. And this was a tree that was meant to grow fast and grow out to shade this, this grass area. And one of our concerns with this tree and this other one, which are the same kind of tree, is the basketball hoops and the damage they would get. And also the fact that this grass is used so much by kids during school and outside of school. So this is a tree that we actually replaced because the kids had actually broken it off right here at the stump. They just broke the whole tree off. So we replaced this one about a year and a half ago, and it's already done very well. It's a very good size. Here we have the plot that was designed for our layout of where our trees were going to be and what kinds and what numbers they were, so we could assign them to different classrooms. So we were just at this tree that we replanted, the tipu tree, and this was the first one we looked at, the one that was large, that was reaching out over the 2 basketball hoops. And then some of this other stuff we have is down here is where we had the fire truck issues. The fire trucks had to hit this corner, so they had to be able to get through here. So that was one of the issues we approached there. On our plan originally, we had trees going across here that would go all the way around the edge of our playground. And the reason we took those out is also because the fire trucks had to get into these different areas. So those were some of the design considerations. Down here, we've had issues. This is a tree by our Kenneth Gate that was meant to shade the parents and the kids who were coming out after school and before school. And this tree is the one that we planted twice, and it has died both times. And then this tree has died, and this tree has just died. So we're wondering if there's some sort of construction waste up here, some sort of soil issue in this area. So we're gonna look into that before we replant. And then here is the original initiation of the project was to shade this kindergarten area right here. So you can see how the plan grew from there to encompass the whole campus. But this is the result, or the solution. We had, I believe there's like 7 pink trumpet trees planted along here, and they'll grow up to be probably another 4 years. They'll be big enough to shade this entire playground. So we were very careful when we knew we were putting a tree in a playground that was gonna be surrounded by asphalt, that we didn't want a tree that would lift the asphalt eventually, or the roots would get so big. And so there was information on the internet about which trees are moderately damaging, low damaging, and high damaging. So as soon as we saw a high damaging root tree, we could either put it in the grassy area, but we would keep it out of either next to buildings or on the playground. This is the mulberry tree that was planted here in the kindergarten yard. And as I mentioned before, it was planted for several reasons. Mainly the kindergartners have silkworms in the spring, and they use the leaves to feed the worms, and they never had a tree in the area where they could do that. Also, we found that there have been a lot of craft projects used for these trees because the leaves are very big and they work well for that sort of thing. And so since the leaves were very important for this tree, not only for the shade, but also for the different projects that could be used, the kindergartners decided to name this tree Leafy. We did consider a lot of the fruit drop, or if the tree dropped anything that was either poisonous or something that could be easily thrown at other students, we just automatically threw that tree off the list. And then we also, we focused a little bit on pollen, but not a lot, because we understand that some kids were allergic, but we also understood that the ones that were very offensive pollen-wise were only offensive for about 2 weeks. And we picked a few trees that had a lot of pollen, but they pollinated during the summer. So we said, okay, let's go ahead and pick those because the kids won't be here. All right, this tree epitomizes our entire tree planting in several ways. This is one of our trees that was planted by Classroom. And it was also one of the first trees that the district used the heavy machinery to dig up. So all the kids were standing up here watching them dig this hole up. So when they planted the tree, the root ball actually broke apart, and it sent a little bit of panic through the tree people who were helping, and also through the parents. And so they spent a lot of time getting it planted just right. And when we planted it, it was about this tall, and it just had a few sticks. And everyone was kind of like, this is gonna be one of the trees that don't really make it. But so the kids decided, after getting it in the ground, they were gonna name it Little Angel. And so eventually it just kind of took off. And we don't know why, but it just, maybe it's because there were so many, this is where the kids line up. And so there were a lot of kids around it all the time, and they all knew that it had problems, and they, I think they respected the tree a little more. And it was very carefully watered and carefully mulched, and it has done quite well. And every time I know that I come to the school and I see how big it is and how well it's doing, and you can see even now it's blooming. The first year that it bloomed, we were all like, yay, it bloomed. But every time I see it, I just think it's great because it really took off, and no one thought they did. And actually, they had a bench put in here, so the parents and the teachers who were watching the playground here could actually sit under the shade of the tree. Even only after 2 years, they could sit in the shade and watch the kids play. So this is a very, very special tree for the tree planting. I think they ought to just first start by, if they have a couple parents that are interested in this, they could just walk their campus and look at where a tree would be beneficial, whether they would put it next to a playground or next to a building or near gates. We planted several that were near gates, so when parents are waiting to pick up their kids, they could be shaded. And at that point, they could check with their principal and see what kind of process would be involved, or they can contact Tree People, which is at treepeople.org, and then they would actually give them some more organizational skills to try to put together a planting.